And then there were three. While the Gujarat Titans await the winner of this clash, yes, it's just two that remain out of the 10 that began at the start of the tournament. It seems a lifetime ago that we were in March looking at two brand new teams, one of them already in the final. The second one was eliminated just 24 hours ago. And now we are down to two familiar names, the Rajasthan Royals and the Royal Challengers Bangalore. Yes, the all-royal clash to decide the second finalists to join the brand new franchise, the Gujarat Titans, in the grand finale on Sunday. Here we are on Cricbuzz Live, one penultimate time to look ahead to this eliminator. They call it the qualifier. I think we should just call it another eliminator because the loser goes home. I'm joined on the program by Ajay Jadeja and Michael Vaughan. Gentlemen, this should be quite the clash that we're looking forward to. Two red-hot teams, literally and otherwise, almost, Michael. But for you, even before we give away the result of the toss, any pre-tournament or pre-match favourites?
Well, we know you're supporting. Yeah. So I'm going with your colours. I just think the RCB side have just got a little bit of something going. The problem they're up against Rajasthan, if Butler has a day out, he had a day out in the last game and still didn't quite manage to get Rajasthan over the line because the bowling wasn't quite up to scratch. But Butler, Sanju, they're the keys from a Rajasthan perspective. But you just look at the RCB side, I still don't think they've played to potential. I still think there's a little bit left in the locker, and if they somehow can get that out of the locker today, they're going to be a very difficult side to beat.
Well, we can tell you what did happen at the toss. Very rarely. It hasn't happened much all season. Sanju Samson did win a toss, and they've asked RCB to bat first. Maybe not the worst thing in the world. Also, Ajay, I do have a very nice pink jacket that I love, but I've worn it too recently. So not necessarily support, but since you did remind me about my pre-tournament predictions, they really should start as favourites today, shouldn't they?
Yeah, they should. And I mean, you predict them at the start of the tournament to, win it. And they've looked like a winning side. I mean, they probably haven't had the best run. I mean, but that's what you hope. I mean, even if your big guns haven't fired, you still made it here. Maybe a little lucky, and that luck does play a part in this sport anyway. So, as a team, and if you're batting first, you know me. I mean, I'm a bat first guy, and I believe that, especially in pressure games, runs on board always makes a difference. And this ground, which is supposedly a slightly bigger than the other one that we saw in Calcutta. So, runs on board is always helpful. And how does the toss matter, GB, anymore? Because no matter who the captain is, which the team is, they win the toss and they want to field. But, when you look at the numbers of the games, there are a lot of teams that won defending their total, but still the captains carry on, winning the toss and wanting to field, even in a pressure game like this one.
There were 70 games in the league stage, and I think we were in game 35 when the first captain, that too in an afternoon game, was brave enough to win the toss and bat first. Hardik Pandya, I think it was, on that occasion. But Michael, the psychology of the two teams coming in here. RCB have got into the last four via the back door. They actually sat in their team room and watched somebody else do it for them. They looked the more keener side. They're coming off a win in yesterday's game. But what about RR? They're coming off a loss. They've lost to Gujarat. Is that something that really will affect your performance coming to today's game?
It may do. I mean, one or two individuals are not the same form bracket as they were earlier in the tournament. You can think of someone like Trent Bolt, who's had an iffy couple of games. I don't think it should matter. This is a completely fresh start. You won't get away from the final. All the players will be incredibly excited about putting on a show. There'll be a massive crowd there. These are the kind of days as a player that you do all the work when you're a young kid, and in all these franchise leagues, you hope you get to a stage of playing in a semi-final. There's going to probably be 100,000 people watching the game, millions watching on television. So I wouldn't think that they'll be thinking of the last performance. It's all about the here and now, and both sides will be looking around the dressing rooms knowing they've got world-class performers, and you just hope it's you that can manage to be that one player that makes the difference. If not you, you want one of your teammates to have a special day out. So I don't think there's a massive amount of momentum that Rajasthan lost. I don't think there's a huge amount of momentum that the RCB side can take from the last win. But I think if you went down and put both 11s on paper, just at this minute, in terms of form, you would say there's probably a few more in the RCB team that are playing better at the minute than the Rajasthan Royals. But it's a new day. Anything can happen. We saw in the last game with the RCB side, the big hitters didn't fire, and Patidar put a display on, which was, I don't know what you think, Ajay, but it's probably one of the best innings I've ever seen in IPL cricket. That 100 was spectacular. So it's not always about the big names. It's about a collective. And now and again, you get surprised by an individual that gets your team over the line. It might be the same story today.
Yeah, I mean, at the start of the season, if you were to sort of say, okay, RCB will be in the penultimate game, would you do a predicted lineup? Rajat Patidar would not have been there, probably, certainly, because he wasn't in the squad. Loveneet Sisodia was there. He came in as an injury replacement, keeps his place towards the latter half of the season, and then scores 100 in that game. So I think one of the biggest pluses, Ajay, probably for them coming in here is that when they look at the 11, if someone like a Kohli or a Faf du Plessis or a Maxwell might be due, that's the best news you can possibly have.
Yeah, and he batted brilliantly. I mean, throughout the tournament, you got 40s and 30s from him, but you could see that there was a spark in this man, and he looks like a special player to me. And rightly said, I mean, when you go into a game with, we always look at, Kohli, Faf, and Maxwell, and DK, and out of those 4, 3 didn't fire, and you still won the game easily. And you got to a total which is above par for most people. I mean, 180, 190 is, a par score, and you've gone beyond that without your 3 big guns firing. So from that point of view, you look at, your side and say, listen, on a bad day, if you're going to get there, what happens if we have a good day? So, it is a big plus. But on the other side, I think, when you look at Rajasthan Royals, I mean, in the last game, all of us, when we were talking about the game, we said, RCB had almost given up hope and they were sitting and waiting for the other team to help you out. So maybe Rajasthan can look at this game and say, listen, we had a chance to get to the finals. We lost it, but we've got another chance. So if RCB did what they did to the other team, yeah, we have an opportunity as well. And, looking at this side, we don't see those big names. I mean, Josh Butler, of course, has been phenomenal, but you don't have a Kohli or a Faf or, Maxwell to turn it around. But these guys seem to have done something well enough as a unit. I mean, Riyan Parag is a man that everybody's looked at and said, what has he done? What has he done? Maybe it's his day. I look at it that way. I mean, you have to look, if you're looking from your point of view, then you got to find some kind of positive and say, look, if somebody hasn't done well for so long, maybe it's his day. And I hope they don't get to that stage. That's what they'd look at. But bowling wise, I look at sides more bowling because, batsman can have a bad day. First ball, you get out and, you don't play a part. But whereas a bowling side, with Ashwin and Chahal together, it's just that I'm surprised that they didn't bat first. You bat first and have that bowling side on a biggish ground. And with big guns on the other side, the pressure's on the big guns then. So I feel that they've let that pressure off, maybe because they're probably worried about their own batting. So
Michael,
they don't want to go in there and put that total up, and they're saying our batting is weak. Let's put in our best foot forward first. Let's get our bowlers to do whatever they can, and we'll see what happens. So both are taking the safer route, I think. I mean, in this choice, only Rajasthan Royals.
Could it also be a situation, Michael, because we've moved venues? For the first part of the tournament, we had familiar venues. Even if you changed the strip, you somehow knew how the square would behave. Now we've moved to a brand new venue. And until you've actually stepped out and played a few balls on it, you really can't tell what it's going to be. Is that a rationale for bowling first also?
Well, it just seems to be the trend in T20 cricket. If in doubt, field. It just seems to be the modern way. I'm with Ajay that I just think in a big game, and particularly when you've got an outstanding bowling lineup. So you look at the RCB team. I think they've got 3 world-class performers in Hasaranga, Hazelwood, and Harshal Patel. I think they're 3 incredible bowlers in T20 cricket. You've then given this powerhouse of a batting lineup the chance to go and get a freedom of play score without that scoreboard pressure. Look, if the dew comes in and the pitch gets better, it's the right decision. But in a big game like this, and particularly when you've got that spin combination of Chahal and Ashwin that you can throw the ball to, I am surprised by the decision. They'll have the reasons. We'll know in about 3.5 hours' time whether it's the right one. But maybe we're old school. Maybe we're old school that we just like runs on the ball. We'll have to wait and see. But it just seems to be such a common trend that in T20 cricket, it happens all over the world. If in doubt, these captains, these statos that run the teams, they like to bowl first.
When you mentioned the three H's, Michael, somehow my mind went back to the H's in My Fair Lady: Artford, Hereford, and Hampshire. I was just thinking of Hazelwood, Asaranga, and Arshall, and we can get an H in there somewhere. But again, those three key players Michael mentioned, but obviously with bowling first, Ashwin and Chahal will have to play a role. They had a rare bad outing in Kolkata, and I think if they are to bowl first, and if they've got the onus to try and keep this power-packed Bangalore batting lineup down, they'll have to play a role.
Oh, they'll play a major role. I mean, because, it's a 20-over game. I know we all look at that power play and what happens. But the major part of this game these days, because everybody seems to play the power play, no matter what happens, it's around that 45, 55 scores. The last five have been, giving you another 50. The real difference in the games have been in the middle. And that's where, these two can play a huge role. And, if they bowl in tandem, I mean, even the best players, whether it's Kohli or, Faf or Maxwell, they can make an impact. They can turn it around. And this is the graphic that shows you what they've done this year.
Yeah, I mean, if they take 2 wickets or less, they lose. If they take 3 or more, that's when they've won. In terms of a combo. So this is Ashwin plus Chahal. If between them, they've taken 2 or less, they've lost all 6. 3 or more, they've won 8 games.
Yeah, and I think this graphic that you put up is something that I would like to show the bowlers. I mean, especially the spinners, or when everybody talks about economy alone. This shows you that this gives you better results. Your economy could be a couple of balls plus or minus, but this is the difference. And I hope Ashwin's watched this, because he's one of the finest spinners that we have. I mean, I have no doubts in my mind. It's only but when he's bowling spin, when he's bowling that, his skill. So if he can do that and pick up these wickets, I mean, the graphic tells you, and I mean, numbers are facts, and that that you can't debate on them. So if you pick up 3 wickets between 2 of you, it's just not asking for too much. And if that's what the results are, and if they do that today, the result would probably go that way. Because it just dents the whole game. And especially when spinners who are bowling from 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 overs, at that stage when you're picking up wickets, means even if you had 1 wicket at the top, you pick up 3 more, you're down to the tail. The last guy who comes in to bat cannot bat as freely as that. Whereas you bowl a couple of good overs and you get through your 4 overs, your mate at the end gets stuck. So it's wickets that why bowlers should be playing, and these two are fabulous spinners.
And they're also thinking cricketers, Michael. I mean, we all know about Chahal's exploits on the chessboard. Interestingly, on the flight over from Mumbai to Kolkata, Ashwin was playing chess on the flight with one of his teammates. So they both seem to have an affinity towards that. Now they need to just get the pieces in the right place to outfox the Bangalore boys.
Yeah, I mean, no idea how to play chess myself. I play drafts if there's any kind of board games going. I think Glenn Maxwell's the key with those two. He's got it in him with the batting hand to really embarrass spinners. He's that good. When he gets going, he can hit any kind of spinner. So I'm looking forward to that kind of matchup of Ashwin and Chahal bowling to Glenn Maxwell. He's been okay, but he has got it in him to dislodge any spinning kind of combination. What they've got to do that combination, and they've got to try and realise that the opposition aren't necessarily always going to target them. If it's just offering a little bit, they might just look to kind of manoeuvre them into the gaps. So now and again, I think Sanju can be a bit braver with his field settings for those two. He can almost offer a big shot, to try and get the wickets. If I'm looking at those stats as a captain, I'd be thinking as a captain, how am I going to get 3 or more wickets with the spinners? And it might be that he needs to be a little bit braver with his field settings. It might be that he needs to put a slip in place. It might be that he has to bring a short extra cover, a short mid-wicket. Just bring mid-off up for a couple of balls when a new batsman comes in to try and get the new player to hit over the top. That's how I'd look at it if I was Sanju Samson. I would know those numbers, and I'd be thinking, right, I've got to make sure that I try and create opportunities for those two to get 3 or more wickets.
Yeah, and already we've talked about matchups. Of course, when the whole Chahal matchup comes on, it's 2 parts, Ajay. One is, of course, playing against your old franchise. And right at the start of the tournament, we were looking forward to all the players playing against their old franchise. And Chahal was the one, he was vocal about it. He said, I expected to be part of this team. No hard feelings, but let me just get a few wickets. That, plus the fact that he's got a pretty decent record against the big boys in that among his old mates.
Yeah, I mean, your old team, and especially when they've left you out or they didn't bid for you, it does hurt. And for somebody like Chahal, who's done exceptionally well for them, I mean, Chahal's all his life bowled at, the Chinnaswamy, which is not the easiest place to bowl. So he's done all the hard work. But RCB's, always loved their stars, their batting stars. They've always gone for them. So he'll have a, point to prove. And he'll probably know a couple of things about them. Because, when you played with, your teammates, there is a conversation after the game or throughout the season. You find out that, what is it that somebody likes it? Where do they, like playing shots or where they don't? So there'll be a bit of a advantage that a bowler has. As a batsman, you also know your mates who are bowling. But, it's a different thing. It's a reaction that you need to do as a batsman. Whereas a bowler, you could actually run the play. So Chahal and I, a lot of people don't count him as an intelligent bowler. And I had this poll out at the beginning of the season saying, we're going to have both the spinners, one considered to be the most intelligent and one not considered to be as smart or as intelligent, which is Chahal. At the end of the season, I think, Chahal's given Ashwin a run for his money in intelligence, not about cricket and not about the skills. So I have a lot of time for Chahal. And I think he'd be up for it. He would want to beat RCB individually also if he could, because he has a point to prove.
And he wouldn't like to be told he wasn't on the intelligence scale, Ajay. He likes to keep an eye on things. He likes to think of himself as a little professor sitting there. And of course, he has dance moves to prove it all, just in case that matters.
Yeah, but I mean, intelligent people could be dancing. There's no harm, being
good point. All right, but yeah, again, in terms of that last match, I know we keep mentioning Rajat Patidar. We were all wowed by it, but if we have to analyze a little bit more into that, he's coming off, Michael, a Virat Kohli and a Faf du Plessis. They're the ones who are walking out. He's padded up, sitting there as a lesser known player. It could overawe some people. But even if one of those top guys have failed, it hasn't really phased him at all. Have a look at this. He's walked in at 11 for 1, 0 for 1, 4 for 1. Kohli, du Plessis. So you've lost a big wicket, whichever of those two get out. And for many players, it could phase them. You're putting extra pressure on yourself. Now I need to step into those shoes. Obviously, there's the temperament there, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said. I mean, if you can tell me a better IPL innings, I know there's been some great ones and there's been many hundreds over the years. I remember Brendan's 100 on the first game many years ago. I mean, there's been outstanding knocks, but to do it under that pressure in an eliminator when we know that the RCB side, they just struggle at this stage of the tournament. To do it when you've seen Virat, you've seen Faf, and to do it striking at 207, hitting 7 sixes in front of 90-odd thousand people, a kid who you wouldn't have expected to do that. I have to put it in terms of what I've seen in the IPL right up there with the best innings because of the pressure, because of the stars that have been and gone. To strike 92 in the last 6.5 overs with DK. I mean, it's just, it's incredible what he achieved in that innings. Can he do it again? I mean, it suggests that his temperament is very, very strong when he's going out there early and he's seeing a huge name walk by him with not many by his name, and he's got to try and see his team through to a score, and he's done it pretty much consistently now when he's been asked to go out there so early. So he's clearly got the game, he's got the temperament, he can play on the big stage, and that innings that we saw in Calcutta, it's as good as it gets.
Well, he is philosophical. He didn't himself read too much into it. Just said that sometimes it comes off, other times it doesn't. Next time I'm prepared for it not to come off. And I think you need to be that way as well. And next time he may not need it to come off if Faf du Plessis and Virat Kohli decide to spend 16 overs out there batting. Remember, once again, to remind all of you, they are in fact batting first. They've been asked to bat first. Not sure they'd mind that. Sanju Samson winning the toss, a rare toss that he's won this season, and has asked RCB to bat first in this big game. Once again, this is an eliminator. Ajay, just looking ahead to the possibilities for the Bangalore batting, they'll be happy. They've been put in. They're going to put runs on the board. Further down the order, Maxwell has, if you look at his season overall, he's not set the stage on fire as well. Is it time for someone like him to deliver, on the assumption that maybe all these guys don't come to the party?
It is. I mean, it's always a time when you're a big, you're supposed to be the big show. I mean, maybe last year he spoilt us as well, hasn't he? I mean, the consistency that he had last year is something that we haven't seen from him, in the last 7-8 years. The thing is, I mean, when he fires, he really fires. But last year was special. I mean, he was consistent as well. So, this year hasn't been the same as last year. So he'd be hoping this is a big game. And I think finals, of course, are very big games. But semi-finals is something that, you always have a choice. You have something to look forward to. Whereas in the finals, that's it. If you don't do it today, then nothing else is going to happen. So I think semi-finals are actually very big games. And but do you think, I mean, I don't know Maxwell, we watch him on television, we watch him everywhere else. He doesn't seem like a guy who, worries too much about what, the occasion is or what, because he just goes out and he enjoys his game. He likes to play the game in a certain way, definitely wants to play differently from everyone around him. So if the team is out and down, I think he's probably, feels more comfortable. Whereas when he walks in at, 10 overs, only 1 wicket down, you're already at 85, 90, then he tries to go ballistic, or he tries to go even further than where he should be going. And that's where he gets into trouble. So if you're in trouble, I would back Maxwell more when, the teams are in trouble rather than when they're in a good position. So it depends when he walks in, because the expectation from him is also different. I mean, anybody else walking in at a score, you don't look at it. But with Maxwell, what happens is, even the teams, I think that way, that whatever the score is, Maxwell has to be playing at a different pace, which he enjoys. So if they're in trouble, I would worry about Maxwell more as if he was in the opposition.
Interesting point of view there. Michael, just to put it bluntly, does he try too many things at times? Because in the last game, we saw him play the lofted straight drive of Bishnoi. And it was like, wow, that was just one of the wow shots of the game. And then he tries to go for the reverse hits all the time. They come off often, but is there a case for him to maybe tell himself, I'll only pull those out? Or do you not say that to a player like Glenn Maxwell?
I'm not even going to try and get into Glenn Maxwell's mind. I've no idea what's going on inside that head of his. He's a different style player, but I do know that he has got the game to do anything. I've seen it so often that we can sit back and say, oh, he shouldn't be playing the reverses and the switches, but I've seen him play innings where it's coming off pretty much from ball one. So big games, big semi-finals, you expect your big players to arrive and play. And there's not many big players that have arrived and played in big games like today and played it from the get-go in an unorthodox fashion. Generally, they get themselves just in for a few balls, give themselves a chance to get used to conditions. It's a new ground, new venue. He may play in that fashion today. I believe he's a better player when he does that. When he comes out playing all the tricks and the flicks early, I think he's giving the opposition a chance, and I wouldn't mind that, playing against that, because you're looking at a player as a human being who can play like that from ball one. There's not many in the history of the game. Whereas if he comes in and gives himself 6 balls, 8 balls just to get to 8, because all the field is spread when he comes in anyway, so he's going to get a run of ball, and he gets used to the bowlers, the conditions, and then he chooses his right moment. I think that's when he plays his best cricket. I would think big game today, he'll go back to that kind of mechanism. But it's Maxwell. You're never quite sure what's going to arrive out there. There's a party going inside that head. You want to be a part of it. You want to be joining in, but you've no idea what time it's going to finish.
I love that. I love that analogy. A party in the head of Glenn Maxwell. If you're not invited and you want to go in there, you have no idea what's going to go on and when the party is going to finish. I love the analogy. It's going to stick with me for a while, but that is Glenn Maxwell. And you love him, hate him, but he'll always give you a bit of entertainment. What about all of you? You've entertained us with your questions, your queries, and we like to keep it coming. 2 matches to go. Ask Cricbuzz Live. Get your questions in. What do we have for today? Let's get our hashtag Ask Cricbuzz Live question from Karan. And Karan Chanchlani says, Joss Butler has played 2 kinds of long innings this year. One where he goes big from the start and the other where he hangs around before exploding at the death. Which is more favorable to Rajasthan's cause? I think it's a brilliant question, Ajay, because we pointed out the two key innings that Buttler played. One, the last one, and then he made a 70 of 47 where he batted throughout the innings, having struggled at a strike rate of less than 100 for the first 15 overs.
Yeah, for me, I mean, the strike rate, of course, if you can get a better strike rate, why not? But Joss Buttler is the key. I think if he can stay there, be around, all the young guys who, play more fearlessly, if you've lost fewer wickets and Butler's at the other end. And he's too good a player to, worry about the strike rate because, he's not one of those players who doesn't have shots. Or it's not that, he's not a stroke maker that, is struggling and that's why the strike rate is back. It's probably more to do with, the modern day cricket style that, before they get onto the ground, there is always a path made or plans made with the team that this is how we're going to play at over number this. We want to be here, we over number there. And when they're ahead of the game, they actually slow down. It's almost like that. So for me, Buttler, I won't mind him being there at over number 17, 18, no matter what strike rate he's playing on. Because don't forget, the opposition would want, somebody like Buttler in the hut as soon as they can. If he's batting slowly, they'll still be worrying. As long as he's on the ground, it is, Rajasthan plus all the time. So I'm not too worried about his strike rate, and great players tend to do that. I mean, they play the way they feel they need to play on that particular day. So which gives you a better chance. I mean, with Maxwell, you'll never have this question. I mean, the gentleman who asked us that question will never come from Maxwell, but you will never get that consistency. So I'm happy with either sides that he's playing on.
Well, Michael, I'll come to you and aided with a couple of numbers because Ajay, while what you said is very sound logically, in terms of what's happened here, look at the 70 of 47. That's when he hung around till the whole game, lost the game. The other day, he was 37 of 35, somehow got his way to 89 of 56. Red, they lost. So, Michael, numbers suggest Buttler goes hard in the power play, Rajasthan win.
Yeah, and I think he'll go hard today. I mean, it depends on what they're chasing, but he struggles if he struggles against any kind of bowler. We saw him against Rashid Khan in the last game, it's leg spin. So he'll want to try and get out the tracks before Hasaranga. It might be a trick that the RCB side throw Hasaranga to bowl at Joss Buttler quite early because that's the one style of bowler that I've seen him have struggle against leg spin. So I would think he'll come out quite hard to try and get ahead of the trend. What he does in his innings, he generally picks the bowlers that he's really going to go hard against. And if those bowlers are early, he'll take them on. If he feels that the bowlers that he can really get at come around 7 to 12, he'll just wait. So he's got quite a strategic mind. He's not just one of these players that he looks at the ball and thinks, right, I'm going to crash you to all parts because that's what I do. He strategically works out which bowlers he's going to target, but he won't want to face Hasaranga early.
Well,
He didn't have a clue against Rashid Khan. He was laughing in the end because he didn't know which way it was spinning. So I'd be amazed if the RCB side don't throw leg spin at him quite quickly.
I can tell you, Hasu's going to be a busy boy because there's a huge matchup between Hasaranga and Sanju Samson. So between Buttler and Samson, Faf du Plessis has got to work out very quickly who's more valuable, who he wants to use him more against, who he's more likely to get out.
But he's not going to come on before the sixth over ever. I mean, I think 1 over in the power play maybe throughout the tournament. The other day, what LSG, I was surprised to see what LSG did is because if you watched RCB through the tournament, it's at the end that Harshal Patel, changes the whole game. This game, when you play against RCB, you got to play differently, because all said and done, Harshal Patel is a special kind of a bowler. And at that stage, so if you leave 550 or 6, or whatever number that you always look at each other teams, this team, you can't do that. I mean, here, economy shows 9, but this man has done exceptionally well. So whenever they come on to chase, and I'm with Michael on that today they would probably go right at the top. They're going to go hard at the top. They'll take a chance with their Shiraz or, Josh Hazelwood or anyone because they will feel that they have a better chance up there. They'll want to, not finish the game, but keep the game in their control before they get to Harshal Patel. He doesn't come on too early.
But I can tell you one thing. I can promise you one thing. If Sanju Samson comes on to bat in the second over, Hasaranga will be bowling the second over or the third.
Think so?
It's just one of those ridiculous matchups. No?
If it's in the power play, then I back Samson to have a better day against Hasaranga today.
He will. He tried. The last time they brought him in the third over, he tried. He went over the top, 6-4 out. So
Time will tell. Time will
tell. It should be fun. It should be fun. That's all I can tell you when Sanju comes to bat. But for now, joy factor question very quickly. Match is underway. The first or the second qualifier rather. Second eliminator, call it what you like. First action from Ahmedabad. This is the question we have. What connects international bowling performances by Sanat Jayasuriya and Yuzvendra Chahal, a song by the Beatles, we all love the Beatles, and the Indian rupee before 1957? Now, how on earth does Joy think of some connection to the Indian rupee before 1957? Did it have a different name? Did it look different? Long and winding. I have no idea. I'm not going to start singing here. We'll have all our viewers running away if they haven't run away yet. Numbers, gentlemen.
Ooh.
Michael, have you consulted the team?
Yeah. Team are here. They've had a couple of days off. They're going for 177.
177? That's Sean Pollock's number.
I know.
He's got a copyright on that. I hope you can send him to royalty.
Polly's sat on the floor here.
Oh, Polly's in there. Very good. Very good. Ajay?
I'll stick to my inflation number.
The 222 or the 189?
No, 189. That was a special day. That was
222 was just a special day. Okay,
that was one day in Calcutta. That was for Dada.
One day in Calcutta for Dada. All right. Bangalore batting first. Why can't they get a lot more? Why can't they get 199?
Ooh.
199. Ooh. I know it's a big ground, but whatever. I'll go for it. If I'm wearing red and yellow, I'll just go for it. But we talked about parties. Maxwell has a party in his head, but Joy Bhattacharya and company, they have parties in their blood. And that's what they do. Every time we give them a playoff game, they're there on Match Party. If you want to be part of it, you can join. Subscribe to Cricbuzz Plus, and you can be part of all the action. That's all we have right here on Cricbuzz Live. By the way, you can also get onto Retro Reels if you are subscribed to Cricbuzz Plus. From Ajay, Michael, and myself, that's all we have. We'll be back with you in the 10th over on Cricbuzz Combox. Until then, it's goodbye.